Now, Mississippi is no stranger to minor league baseball, and neither is our guest, Tim Hagerty. He's a longtime minor league baseball announcer, and he's the author of Tales from the Dugout, 1001, a humorous, inspirational, and wild anecdotes from minor league baseball, which this should be a good time. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Rebecca.
I've been looking forward to this and not knowing much about baseball, so I'm putting that out there, right? And not much about our minor league teams over the years. But I do love a good tale, and I love things that are funny and that folks, may not recognize goes on in the dugout and beyond. So what inspired you to even write this book? Because I know a lot of research went into getting the 1001 anecdotes.
Yeah, in addition to broadcasting games, I've always loved baseball research. And back in 2012, when researching something else, I came across this newspaper story from the 1880s, and it was about a Texas League game in Austin that got delayed when a wild bull ran on the field. And I thought, I do this for a living, and I've never heard of this story. The odds are most fans haven't either. So it taught me just how many stories there are out there. So over the next decade, I compiled stories like that from the past and from the present. And one of the things I noticed is there's a bunch in Mississippi. There's a rich baseball history in Mississippi, and there's some crazy ones that have taken place there.
Well, we're a little crazy down here, if you hadn't ever heard, Tim, so I can only imagine that spilled off into the baseball diamond or onto the field or whatever they call it. So let's start there. What are some of the stories that you sort of came across that us here in Mississippi would love to know?
Well, first off, part of my career I spent in Mobile, and I broadcasted many games in Pearl, Mississippi with the Mississippi Braves, one of my favorite stadiums still. I tell people that even off the air. Just a great area and friendly people, as you know. But as far as some crazy Mississippi stories, in 1940, Clarksdale City Council election fell on the same day as opening day for the Class C team, the Clarksdale Red Sox. So what to do? We have election day and we have opening day. Well, the city council did what they should have done. They put together a referendum and they said, we're postponing election day. Baseball takes priority. And they postponed election day for opening day. I love that story.
That's funny, Tim. There's still parts of Mississippi you can't buy alcohol on election day, but they're going to let baseball continue, right? I think that's great. That's fun. Okay, let's go to Biloxi. I know there's some fun stories coming out of Biloxi as well.
Yeah, the beautiful stadium they have here for the Shuckers. In 2016, Biloxi had an outfielder, Brett Phillips, who's gone on to a long major league career, really entertaining, positive guy. But on this night, when they were playing the Tennessee Smokies, he sees something on the warning track on the field behind him, and it was a possum that somehow made its way on the field. So Phillips sort of was inching up toward it, and without touching it, trying to nudge it to get it to go away, and this possum eventually slithered back under the fence, and the game continued. But understandably, this is a video that got a lot of attention. It was on national news shows, and I love what the Shuckers did. They had some fun with it. The next year, they did a Brett Phillips bobblehead giveaway, and in the bobblehead doll, down by his feet, you see a little possum.
Oh, I love that. That very Mississippi, underscore it, absolutely. A lot of people would relate to that. And the stories keep coming. I know I don't want to give away all your stories because we want folks to make sure that they get the book, Tales from the Dugout, but you've got a few from Jackson as well.
Yeah, Jackson, for example, in 1997, they had this big, powerful hitter, Darrell Ward, who also went on to play a long time in the majors. And he was so strong that he hit a line drive, and it went 325 feet away and actually broke a wooden fence. The old minor league parks, they had those thick wooden walls at Smith Willis Stadium in Jackson. Shout out to the Jackson Generals. Loved their name and logo, by the way. And this ball went through the wooden fence, and that was another story that got a lot of national attention. There was a photo in some national magazines that showed Ward standing next to this hole in the wall.
That's because our players are cornbread fed, Tim. That's because we are cornbread fed and we drink our sweet tea and our whole milk and we're strong like that. But we also eat a lot of catfish, and I know that played into one of your stories too, and Tales from the Dugout. This one may be my favorite.
It's so funny. I thought you would say that, and I thought this one was my favorite from Mississippi, so I'm glad you brought this up. There have been some bizarre trades in minor league history, and in 1998, independent teams have been able to do crazier things over the years. They're not affiliated with major league teams, so they can kind of do their own renegade trades like this. And there was a pitcher for the Pacific Suns in California, Ken Krahenbull, and he gets traded to the Greenville Bluesmen. And in exchange, Greenville sends Pacific California 10 pounds of Mississippi catfish. This guy got traded for catfish. And
well, it's
what's funny
expensive
is
if you
that
haven't fished your own lately, so I can understand why somebody may see that as sort of gold for their, summer cookout or whatever it may be. But that's funny. I mean, you have to be one person in the whole universe that's been traded for catfish, or I don't know. There may be more stories like that. But you have 1,001, Tim. Did you start out writing this book thinking 1,001, or just over the 10 years, did you just start collecting all of these little stories throughout the baseball and say, hey, this is it. This is 1,001?
I collected about 1,100, and then I reached a point where it was, okay, what am I going to do with this? And I walked by my wife's cookbook, and it said 1,001 recipes. And I thought I like that number. A lot of books have 1001 in its title. So from there, I merged some stories. I eliminated some that I wasn't able to really confirm that it was true or not. So, for example, there was an umpire in 1907 that got arrested for swearing on the field. And then in the 1940s, there was a player who got arrested for swearing on the field. And keep in mind, I'm not saying ejected. They actually were arrested for using bad language. So I took those two stories and I made them one. That's how I sort of narrowed it down to 1,001.
Could you imagine that now? We would have no players, no officials, no coaches. What little I know about professional sports, sort of at all. But this is also your day job. I mean, you started out your love of baseball, not your love of baseball, but you are an announcer. What started your love of baseball that led you down this professional path?
I think like a lot of people, I was hooked as a kid. I grew up in Massachusetts, and I can still remember the first day that my parents took me to Fenway Park in Boston. It was the last day of school in first grade, 1989, and just walking into that ballpark and just being stunned by how bright the grass was and how big the stadium looked. And now I'm 41, and I still get that feeling when I go into a new stadium for the first time, whether it's a major league park or a minor league park. It really brings something out in me that I don't think is a choice. I think it's something that I'm just so naturally drawn to. So love the game. And like I said, I have so many memories in Mississippi. There are great fans there. I mean, they're just so supportive. I remember Jeff Francoeur, who Braves, he played for the Mississippi Braves. And he told me that what was great there is that even when you're playing badly, what he remembers about Mississippi is they were still so positive, still so supportive. And you don't always get that.
No, you don't get that. But we do tend to stand by people for the most part. And if we are going to hate on you, we only want to hate on you. We don't want anyone else hating on you. And then we're going to love you and sort of treat you like family. What is your oldest story in your book? What's the oldest sort of tale you got to share?
1877. This was one of the first ever baseball promotions. Minor league teams these days do crazy, wacky things to try and get people to buy tickets. It's not new. They've been doing it since the 1870s. In 1877, in Wheeling, West Virginia, the team announced a contest where the fans would try to catch a greased pig. And if you did, you got to keep the pig. I wasn't able to confirm if anybody actually captured this greased pig. It seems like something that would be hard to do. I don't know if you've ever done that, Rebecca, but a really slippery pig. But they were doing that in the 1870s at ballparks.
I think they should bring that back. I think we should have a talk with the folks over at Trustmark Park, and just for good fun, at least one time, give it a good go and see if we can't get someone who can snag it. I think that would be fun to watch. And what's your latest story? I know this just published in March of 2023, but what would be your latest story in your book?
Yeah, we have multiple from the 2022 season, including former Major League star Robinson Cano, who was with the team that I broadcast for, El Paso. He was trying to make his way back to the majors late last season. And in his first game, back down in the minors, he's having to really swallow that he's no longer a Major League star. Coincidentally, that night, it was SpongeBob SquarePants jersey night. So here's this guy who's made hundreds of millions of dollars wearing a bright yellow SpongeBob jersey. And that juxtaposition got a lot of attention.
I imagine it did. Okay, I can see where every baseball fan listening is going to want a copy. I get the idea. It reads kind of easy. You can pick it up, put it down, use it at dinner parties for conversation starters or whatever it may be. So where can we grab Tales from the Dugout from, Tim?
It is available on Amazon. It's also available in some Mississippi bookstores. I saw online the Hattiesburg Books A Million has it there. So some stores have it, some don't. Amazon's the quickest way.
All righty. We appreciate your time, Tim. If you're ever in Mississippi, please stop by the studio. We'd love to have you in and share a few more stories.
Oh, I'll do that. Thanks, Rebecca. Great to meet you.
All righty. You guys stick with us. I got more for you coming up next.